Thanks a lot for that. Joining me on India's 77th Independence Day is MOS, Skill Development, Entrepreneurship, Electronics and Information Technology, Rajeev Chandrasekhar. Let me begin by wishing you a very happy 77th Independence Day, Rajeev ji.
Thank you, Shivani, and to you and your colleagues and the viewers. I wish all of you Independence Day as well. And I look forward to a great future as the Honorable Prime Minister outlined today in his speech.
I will get to the Prime Minister's speech and particularly what he outlined for India. But it's not a surprise, pertaining to your ministry concerns as well, that he mentioned India's startup ecosystem as being one of the biggest in the world, amongst the top 3 in the world. I want to begin by understanding from you, what do you think has been the highlight in this field, in this ecosystem for India over the last year or the last few years, and what is it that we really should look forward to?
No, I think in a lot of ways, Shivani, the startup ecosystem symbolizes and in a sense represents this very, very changed India that has emerged after 9 years of very hard work and policy making by our Honorable Prime Minister. For the first time, young Indians are operating on a global stage, creating innovation, creating startups that have grabbed the attention of investors from all over the world and are doing so at scale and doing so really making their presence felt in the global innovation ecosystem. So that is one. The second is, I think, the most important thing in the last 12 months in particular is the fact that the diversity and the scope of startups which were all around the internet and consumer internet for the first few years has now covered space, semiconductor, AI, automotive, EVs, high performance computing, supercomputing. So it is almost like the technology and innovation ecosystem, the global innovation ecosystem, there is not any space that does not have Indian startups or young Indians present in innovating and creating technology for the future. So I think it is absolutely something that I would have never guessed, having spent 30 years in technology, that we would ever reach this type of stage of confidence and global presence. But here we are, 9 years after Prime Minister became Prime Minister, looking at the world with a totally new perspective and new confidence.
Speaking of confidence, the one thing the Prime Minister repeatedly talks about is how the world has renewed confidence in India. And you're kind of mentioning a little bit of the same. I want to understand from you, what is the biggest indicator that the world has this renewed confidence in India? What, according to you, gives that away?
There are many factors, many indicators, many things that you can pick up to make that point. But certainly I think from a country that has been discussed for the last 65, 70 years as a country of great potential, the biggest democracy, great talented people, but having repeated decades of dysfunctional governance, some misguided socialism, crony capitalism, and all of that held India back. Today, India is seen as a country with many young Indians with great potential, great energy and determination, marching forward. And for the first time, it is almost like the narrative of government governance and the narrative of our Indian potential, India's potential, are harmonized and walking in lockstep. For many decades, Shivani, and you will know this from having conversations before with other people, India was a country that was performing under its potential. And it's for the first time that the world looks at India, and especially this new generation of young confident Indians, and say they are really stepping up to the plate and delivering what India's promise has been for several decades. So I think that is the perspective with which the world is looking at India. And one very simple way of demonstrating that is these great technology alliances and MOUs that are being entered into by countries like the US with India, with the recent ISET, where the future of tech in semiconductors, in high performance computing, in AI, in many areas, countries like the US that have been at the forefront of technology and innovation for decades are now looking to partner with India and Indians to shape the future of tech. Same for the EU, same for Japan, same for many of these countries that have long dominated the technology and innovation ecosystem. So I think it is clearly a very, very different India after last 9 years, and a very, very different, more confident, future-ready generation of young Indians that are, in a sense, propelling this whole re-rated opinion of India amongst the world's nations and world's peoples.
You talked about being future ready. The Prime Minister is also hammering the point lately in his speeches that the crucial period that is coming up, the next 20-25 years, we have to strike it while it's hot, and we have to make good of that demographic dividend, the youth potential that you are referring to, the Prime Minister refers to. What makes you confident that we are on the right path, that we are ready to in fact extract the best of that very limited window of demographic dividend?
Look, I'm very, very confident, because I think the last 9 years have shown to the Indians at large, and young Indians in particular, those who are students today, those who were students yesterday, and who are in the workforce today and who are now building their future, that the old narrative that nahi kar sakte hain, cannot do this, it is beyond our capabilities, beyond our abilities, has all been turned on its head. And the other narrative of the key government will trip you up even if you are a smart young Indian, that has also been changed dramatically, where the government under the leadership of our Prime Minister is today the most active enabler and so heavily invested in the success of our youngsters, that I think today the confidence and the opportunities that are there that represent the future for our young Indians, nobody is ever going to allow this country to slip back into decades of crony capitalism and corruption and misguided socialism and appeasement and that type of petty politics that held this country back and held all these crores and millions of Indians back all these years. So I think we are on a journey. Everybody has understood the direction that this country can go and the heights that this country can achieve, heights that individual Indians can achieve. And certainly that is in a sense something that everybody is heavily invested in building a better future for themselves, their families and for their country.
Let me come to the digital space, another area that you deal with very closely. Just recently, the DPDP Act, the Protection of Personal Data Act has been passed. Now, this has been, if I may use the term, a pet project of yours or a passion project of yours. As a young parliamentarian, you had floated this bill as an individual bill, and now it is a reality when you're yourself as the MOS of METI. Just talk to me a little bit about what satisfaction it gives you to see the data protection bill becoming a reality today.
No, look, one of the things that I personally as an individual, and I think I echo the view of many thousands and lakhs of Indians, is that all of what we thought was difficult, all of what we thought was impossible to achieve in parliament, in government, in just our lives, post 2014, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has enabled all of this to be possible. I think this framework, for example, of data protection, which I argued during the UPA's 10 years from 2010 onwards, and they kept fighting, saying privacy is not a fundamental right, privacy is not a big issue, it is an issue for elite people, and kept resisting it and blocking every conversation and every attempt to have a discourse on this. It took Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji in 2017 to basically say we will have a data protection bill, and it has taken some years because of the intervening COVID, but his view, his ideology, his philosophy to make sure at the heart of governance is well empowered citizens, citizens with rights and citizens with a great sense of their duty to this country, to their communities, to their families, is really what will make this country move forward and will take us to the status of Viksit Bharat. So I think this is the one element of a spectrum of well-defined rights that our Prime Minister has given our Indian citizens, and always stressing that these rights come with their reciprocal duties, which is to collectively, like he says, sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka prayas, collectively work towards this almost near our grasp, within our grasp mission of becoming a developed nation in the medium term, and in the short term, the third largest economy in the world.
Mr. Chandrasekhar, I've been informed that you've been nominated for the UK's prestigious Index Freedom of Expression Awards because of your efforts both for the right to privacy judgment and also as far as the data protection bill is concerned. Once again, I ask you the question, if this is turning out to be a satisfactory moment for you.
No, Shivani, that was a nomination in 2013.
Yeah.
It is not a nomination now. It is certainly an old nomination. No, look, I think privacy and data protection is something that is very close to our Prime Minister's view, that as 120 crore Indians become internet users from the current 83 crores, every Indian, every Nagrik, digital Nagrik must have the right to a safe and trusted internet, have accountable intermediaries and in platforms which are accountable to the digital Nagrik. So I think the framework of laws that are now being put at the center of it is the digital Nagrik, who will use the internet for his or her business, his or her work, his or her benefits and interaction with the government. So I think these rights are a very important part of how our Prime Minister sees the framework and the role of the digital Nagrik and his or her rights.
So as much as opportunity the digital space provides, it's also wrought with a lot of challenges. And you kind of dealt with it as far as the IT rules is concerned, as far as the ambit of the DPDP Act is concerned. Recently, for example, you've talked about the whole NewsClick affair. So as much as there are opportunities online, there are also challenges for the Indian state and for the Indian citizens. How do you look at that as we move forward? Especially, there is a sense as India grows, there will be growing attacks through the digital space on India.
You're absolutely right, Shivani. I think India's rise, especially in the last 9 years, economically, from a security point of view, from our innovation confidence point of view, our role in the overall community of nations in terms of our own voice that is being heard increasingly with more respect and credibility as the G20 presidency shows or the GPA chairmanship shows. I think all of this certainly will cause angst and cause bitterness and amongst many countries and many people. And I think the rise of India, the rise of our economy, the rise of our people will certainly be challenged surreptitiously or directly by vested interests. And they will operate through political parties, they will operate through media surrogates, they will operate through misinformation, that they operate through cross-border actors. So I think we should all be aware that the rise of India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji will certainly not be without its challenges, will certainly not be without people trying to trip us up, will certainly not be without people trying to create internal divisions and stoked by misinformation. And we should be a highly aware nation, highly aware citizenry, and every time we are faced either with a political leader who goes and mouths lies about us abroad, or a platform that mouths misinformation about us in India, or indeed a foreign platform that talks about propaganda aimed at India, we should be alert and we should have both policy responses as well as an aware citizenry that responds to that. It is very clear, Shivani, in my mind at least, I am not the brightest bulb on this topic, but certainly I have a highly developed sense of intuition that Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji is taking India in a very, very different direction of prosperity, expansion, growth. And there are many people who don't like that and certainly will do their best to try and slow our rise or trip us up.
The opposition in the country says that it's actually the government or the BJP, the party, that is responsible for rising toxicity, is a term that is used for both online and political circles, and also misinformation. How would you respond to that?
No, I think my response is that they continue what they have started from 2014, very illustrious but highly, lacking credibility, highly incredible strategy of lying there through their teeth. I think they believe that they are very smart, or they think they're very smart by saying and trying to allege things that they are doing and trying to put that on somebody else. it is clear that the toxicity, the lies in politics, the misinformation has been pioneered by one party that is now being echoed by the cronies in the UPA. Our party, our government has been absolutely transparent in what it does, whether it's policy making through consultation, whether it's creating policies. But we have, of course, an opposition that is increasingly desperate. Their leaders go to the US and cast aspersions and tear down our government, tear down democracy, allege lies about our honorable Prime Minister, tear down our democratic process and EVMs. And they have the gall to turn around and say that the government and the Bharatiya Janata Party is the one responsible for toxicity. I think to them I only say, go and rewind what your leader says abroad, take a deep, immersive view of what he says, and you figure out for yourself, if you are genuinely interested in understanding the truth about who is responsible for toxicity, where this toxicity comes from, where the lies come from, where the misinformation comes from.
Final couple of questions, Rajeev Chandrasekhar. One is that the Prime Minister has reminded the public, and I think it's a messaging to the opposition as well, that he's going to be back. He said that today for next year's Independence Day speech. He has also hinted to it in Parliament during the recent no confidence motion debate that, in 2028, the opposition will moot another such motion against our government. I want to understand from you, as a minister in the government, what makes you so confident? What makes the BJP or the government so confident you're coming back to power?
No, I think the Prime Minister is confident, Shivani, because we are confident about the Indian population, the Indian voters, the Indian citizens who today see where India is today compared to where India was pre-2014. I think, while we may all sit in TV studios and look at disruptions in Parliament, never forget the real master in the Indian democracy is the voter, the citizen. And the citizen today is very clear about which direction he wants our country to go, he or she wants our country to go. He certainly or she certainly does not want India to go back to 65 years of appeasement, 65 years of corruption, 65 years of being, in a sense, dealt with or loaded with one dynasty after another. So I think this is a very, very different India. It's a very awakened India. It's awakened to its opportunities and prosperity and the potential that the future holds for it. And I think all of the misinformation, all of the lies, all of the political shenanigans that the rebranded UPA is trying to toss will not change the fundamental truth about what Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and how he has transformed our nation in the last 9 years and how he has brought a resurgent new India into the limelight and how he is creating a much better future, a dramatically better future for millions and crores of Indians all across the country.
The Prime Minister says that this period is extremely crucial, not just for the next century or this century, which is often termed as the India century, but all for the next 1,000 years. As we wrap up on 77th Independence Day, Rajeev Chandrasekhar, what would your message be to India? And of course, why is it you feel the current period, as the Prime Minister said, is so crucial for the next millennium?
I honestly, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, believe that we are at the most exciting time ever in the history of independent India. And the reason we are here is simply because the last 9 years we've had a leader, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, who has worked absolutely relentlessly and determinedly to change the course, change the destiny of our nation that he inherited in 2014. And those 9 years of hard work have really made India today a very different India from what we thought was possible and what we certainly saw in the years pre-2014. I think we are at a very exciting time in the history of our nation as a modern, independent nation, the most exciting time ever since 1947's independence moment. And in a lot of ways, this marks, after the 1947 moment, the biggest and the most exciting time for the younger generation of Indians to look forward to a different India, an India which is developed, full of opportunities for themselves, not just in India, but on a global scale and a global level. So I believe that this is certainly the most exciting time for Indians, and I wish I was a young Indian today, but unfortunately I can't be a young Indian today, but I certainly can work hard with the Prime Minister to make a better future for all of those young Indians today that comprise the majority of our population.
Well, thanks a lot for your time, Rajeev Chandrasekhar. Wish you many, many more years. And of course, congratulations on the DPDP Act also getting passed recently. The Prime Minister reminding the country that India will be a developed country by the time it celebrates its 100th Independence Day. On that note, let's also slip into a very short break. Our special coverage on this momentous occasion continues on the other side.